Supreme Court just changed the game. Millions of Americans woke up to a nation that looks completely different from the day before. And the ruling could redefine gun rights forever. This 6-3 decision is not just a minor legal adjustment, it's a seismic shift in the interpretation of the Second Amendment, one that will affect how firearms are regulated, carried, and owned across the United States for decades to come. The moment the news broke, social media erupted with reactions from every corner, from gun rights advocates celebrating what they see as a historic victory for personal freedom, to gun control organizations warning about public safety and potential increases in firearm-related incidents. The scale of the decision is enormous, and its implications are far-reaching. The court's ruling effectively challenges decades of precedent that allowed states to regulate firearms more strictly than the federal baseline. For years, states have had the ability to impose background checks, waiting periods, restrictions on certain types of guns, and limitations on magazine capacities. These measures were intended to protect public safety. Yet according to the Supreme Court, they may have crossed the line into infringing on constitutionally guaranteed rights. The majority opinion, backed by 6 justices, makes it clear that any law which places undue restrictions on law-abiding citizens' ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights is now subject to intense scrutiny. From a legal standpoint, this ruling represents a monumental reaffirmation of individual rights over state-level regulatory authority. While the Second Amendment has always been controversial, its interpretation has evolved through a series of landmark cases, including District of Columbia v. Heller, which first established an individual's right to possess firearms. The new 6-3 decision goes further, not only reinforcing that right but also limiting the power of states to impose what the court considers excessive or unconstitutional restrictions. It signals a renewed emphasis on personal liberty, framing firearm ownership as a right that cannot be unduly constrained by government policies. The dissenting justices, however, were quick to voice strong concerns. They argue that the ruling could undermine public safety by invalidating laws that have historically helped prevent gun violence. They warn that loosening regulations could lead to a surge in illegal or reckless use of firearms, making it harder for law enforcement to maintain order and protect communities. This ideological divide highlights a persistent tension in American law, the balance between individual rights and collective safety. Gun rights advocates argue that freedom should not be compromised by fear, while gun control supporters stress that liberty comes with responsibility and that regulations exist to protect lives. For gun owners, the ruling is both empowering and complicated. On one hand, it reaffirms the right to keep and bear arms, potentially simplifying the process of purchasing or carrying certain firearms. On the other hand, it introduces uncertainty about which laws still apply, creating a legal landscape that will likely require clarification through additional court cases and state-level legislative action. Firearm owners now face a new reality, while their constitutional rights are reinforced. The precise boundaries of those rights are evolving. Understanding what this ruling means in practical terms will take time, and legal experts anticipate months, if not years, of debate and litigation. The historical context of this ruling cannot be overstated. Gun rights in the United States have long been a contentious issue, tied deeply to the nation's identity, history, and culture. From the founding era, where militias were essential for community defense, to the modern debate over personal protection, hunting, and sport, the question of who can own firearms and under what circumstances has been a recurring theme in American law. This ruling represents one of the most significant reinterpretations of the Second Amendment in generations, challenging assumptions about state power and redefining the relationship between citizens and their government. Economic and political consequences are also looming. Firearm manufacturers, retailers, and training programs may see a shift in demand as Americans respond to the ruling. Politicians will have to recalibrate their messaging and strategies in response to public reaction, with both pro-gun and gun control advocates likely to use this ruling as a rallying point. In some states, legislators may attempt to introduce new laws designed to comply with the court's framework while maintaining a degree of regulation, leading to complex legal maneuvering. The ruling's impact will not just be theoretical, it will be felt in local communities, state capitals, and federal legislation in the months and years ahead. The immediate public reaction has been intense. Gun rights organizations are mobilizing to celebrate and protect the ruling, framing it as a defense of liberty against governmental overreach. Meanwhile, gun control groups are urging caution, calling for responsible ownership and highlighting potential risks. Social media platforms are flooded with debates, opinion pieces, and calls to action, reflecting the polarized nature of the American discourse on firearms. This ruling has not only legal significance, it has cultural and social ramifications, shaping public perception of rights, responsibility, and the role of government in regulating private life. Legal analysts are predicting a wave of new challenges as states with restrictive gun laws navigate this decision. Laws that were previously considered settled could now face constitutional challenges, leading to a cascade of lawsuits in state and federal courts. This is likely to result in a period of uncertainty and adjustment, where both gun owners and law enforcement officials must understand how existing regulations interact with the Supreme Court's ruling. It is a reminder that the interpretation of constitutional rights is an ongoing process, evolving through litigation, advocacy, and judicial review. Critics argue that the ruling could exacerbate public safety concerns, especially in densely populated areas where gun violence has historically been higher. They worry that the court has prioritized individual rights over community protection, potentially making it more difficult to implement measures designed to prevent crime and reduce fatalities. Supporters counter that responsible gun owners should not be penalized for the actions of a few, and that the Second Amendment is a safeguard against excessive governmental control. This debate underscores a core question at the heart of American democracy: how to balance freedom with responsibility. The ruling also has implications for law enforcement. Police departments may need to adapt their policies and training to align with the new legal framework. Officers will be navigating a shifting landscape where previous regulations may no longer be enforceable, requiring clarity and communication with the public. This adjustment period is likely to be complex, as law enforcement seeks to maintain public safety while respecting constitutional protections affirmed by the Supreme Court. The ruling doesn't just affect lawmakers and courts, it directly impacts the men and women responsible for implementing and enforcing the law on the ground. In practical terms, citizens may see changes in how firearms are bought, sold, and carried. Licensing requirements could be relaxed in some states, while restrictions on certain types of firearms may be challenged or overturned. Individuals who previously faced barriers due to state-specific regulations may now find it easier to exercise their rights. However, this newfound freedom comes with the responsibility to remain informed and compliant with existing laws that still stand. The ruling emphasizes the importance of legal literacy and personal responsibility in a society where constitutional rights are protected but not unlimited. Historically, the Supreme Court has rarely issued rulings with such direct impact on everyday life. Decisions like Roe v. Wade or Obergefell v. Hodges reshaped the legal landscape around personal rights, and this 6-3 decision could have a similarly transformative effect on gun ownership. By challenging long-established state regulations, the court has set a precedent that will influence how laws are written, interpreted, and enforced for years to come. It also reinforces the broader principle that constitutional rights are living, evolving, and subject to reinterpretation as society changes. The court's decision raises questions about the future of public policy. Will states attempt to craft new laws that navigate the boundaries set by the ruling? Will federal legislators intervene to create uniform standards for firearm ownership? How will courts at lower levels interpret the Supreme Court's guidance in individual cases? These questions point to a period of legal and legislative activity that is likely to shape the country's approach to gun rights for a generation. Citizens, lawmakers, and courts will all play a role in defining the practical outcomes of this historic ruling. Public perception is also critical. For many Americans, firearms are deeply symbolic, representing freedom, self-reliance, and personal protection. This ruling reinforces those values, while simultaneously sparking concern among those who fear a rise in gun violence. Media coverage, social commentary, and community discussions will shape how the ruling is understood and applied in daily life. The intersection of law, culture, and politics is on full display, highlighting the complex realities of living in a society where constitutional rights are actively debated and contested. Gun rights advocates are likely to use this ruling as a catalyst for further action. We can expect campaigns, rallies, and public education efforts aimed at asserting and protecting the rights affirmed by the court. Meanwhile, gun control groups will continue to advocate for measures they believe are necessary to ensure safety, potentially exploring alternative legal strategies or policy mechanisms to achieve their goals. The ruling has energized both sides of the debate, creating a heightened sense of urgency and engagement among citizens who care deeply about the future of gun laws in America. Economically, the ruling may impact the firearms industry. Gun sales could increase as individuals respond to perceived changes in rights or regulatory environments. Training programs, safety courses, and legal consultation services may see higher demand as people seek to understand the implications of the ruling. This decision is not only a legal milestone but also a potential driver of market dynamics, influencing industries, consumer behavior, and public policy simultaneously. The broader societal implications are equally profound. Questions about safety, responsibility, and community coexistence will dominate public discourse. Schools, workplaces, and public spaces may see renewed debate over policies related to firearms. Civic engagement is likely to increase, as citizens seek to understand and influence how this ruling affects their lives. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision is more than a legal pronouncement, it is a catalyst for conversation, action, and reflection across the nation. Ultimately, this ruling is a reminder that constitutional rights are not static. They evolve, they are challenged, and they are defended in courts, legislatures, and communities. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed the Second Amendment in a way that strengthens individual liberty while provoking deep questions about regulation and safety. Americans are now entering a period of adjustment, where understanding the nuances of this decision is crucial for every citizen, gun owner, and policymaker. The legal, cultural, and social landscape of the nation has shifted, and everyone will feel the impact in some way. As the nation digests this landmark ruling, one truth is undeniable: gun rights in America will never be the same. Citizens, lawmakers, law enforcement, and advocacy groups must navigate a new reality where restrictions are scrutinized more closely, freedoms are defended more vigorously, and the balance between individual liberty and public safety is being redefined in real time. This is a moment of historical significance, one that will shape debates, policies, and legal interpretations for decades. In conclusion, the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling is a defining moment in American history. It reinforces individual rights, challenges state-level restrictions, and sets the stage for a new era in the debate over firearms. The decision has immediate implications for citizens, law enforcement, legislators, and the firearms industry, creating a period of adjustment and uncertainty. Yet it also represents an affirmation of liberty, a reminder that constitutional rights are living principles that continue to evolve with society. Americans must pay attention, stay informed, and engage with this historic shift, because the conversation over gun rights, responsibility, and freedom has entered an entirely new chapter. The 6-3 ruling is not just about law, it's about the very way Americans understand freedom, responsibility, and the role of government in private life. For gun owners, it is a victory affirming their constitutional protections. For policymakers, it is a challenge to rethink existing laws. For citizens concerned about safety, it is a call to stay vigilant and informed. And for the country as a whole, it is a moment of reflection on the delicate balance between liberty and regulation, one that will define the legal and cultural landscape for years to come. The Supreme Court has spoken, and its decision will resonate across America, shaping the future of gun rights forever.